Hi, everyone. My name is Jazmin Elliott. I am here with the One Question Leadership podcast, and I am joined by Mimi Hill. He's Senior Associate Athletic Director of Advancement.
Yes, ma'am.
Very nice to have you with me. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me today.
Yes,
I
thank you,
appreciate
Jazmin.
it. So if you want to just start off and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, Mimi Hill. I have the pleasure of serving as a Senior Associate AD at Hampton University. Been there for all of 4 months now, but had some really fun stops before landing at Hampton. Got my start in athletics as a former hooper, playing basketball collegiately and professionally. So, shout out to Western Kentucky, North Georgia, Germany, and Amsterdam. Gotta throw those in there. And then got my start in collegiate athletics at Auburn University, where I served as the assistant to the former AD, which was Alan Green. So shout out to him as well. And then spent 2 years at the University of Louisville in major gifts there, and then at Georgia Southern overseeing their major gifts team, and now having the pleasure of being at Hampton University overseeing their athletics foundation.
That's amazing. That's quite
Yeah.
the resume.
Oh, well, thank you. And hopefully it continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that it will.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, and I know that it's only been 4 short months, what your vision is and what you hope to bring to Hampton
Yeah.
University athletics.
So in the 4 months that I've been there, I've been doing a lot of listening. And within that, I've learned that there's a lot of opportunity to do some really special things at Hampton. And I'm very fortunate to have an athletics director, Anthony Henderson, leading the shop, who comes from a fundraising background. So we can really lean on each other when trying to build something special. But my main focus right now is getting the right systems in place. You have to have the right systems in place in order to identify who you want to reach out to. You have to have the systems in place to cultivate the donors and get them from start to signing on that dotted line and investing in your programs. And you have to have a story that's so compelling that brings donors in, but not just alumni, but other businesses in the community as well. So it's a lot of building right now, which is exciting. And I'm just happy to be a part of it.
That's amazing. You mentioned storytelling. So
Yes.
my background prior to athletics was public relations and marketing. So storytelling is my passion, in
Yeah.
addition to people,
Mm-hmm.
right? What story, right, do you think is the most compelling piece in terms of cultivating donors, right? Especially when you're not talking to alumni who have a personal relationship with the university, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's the story. This is my home by the sea. I feel compelled, I'm giving back. But what story do you tell to someone who doesn't have a history with Hampton University or HBCUs?
Yeah, I am telling the student athlete story. This is what we're in this industry for. And you, as a former student athlete yourself, you understand what that means, right? And so I think when you're out meeting with donors, you want to talk about the impact that their investment has on that student athlete experience. And when the student athletes have a good experience, I feel that the fans also have a good experience when they're coming out and they are supporting different programs. So I like to start with a student athlete story and the impacts that their investments will have on them.
Absolutely. Um, I think a big piece of that now, right, is student athletes being able to tell that story and
Yes.
creating that brand for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going about utilizing this shift in athletics to be able to really have the student athletes on the front line to help tell those stories?
Yeah. I mean, we use media. That is our best resource right now as far as expressing your story to the masses. And so we are learning how to now better prep our student athletes to share their stories and sharing with them how important it is to get out what they're doing, and whether that is what degree you're majoring in, whether that is what you want to do with your future, so that we can continue to build those connections so that not only will you have that success on and off your field of play, but also in the future.
Yeah. Do you have an example off the top of your head of an example of one of those compelling student athlete stories that really just are impactful and really kind of hit home for donors?
Yeah, I think a common impactful story that I've seen across the industry is that we are providing scholarships to student athletes that probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to have um, uh, the opportunity to play at the next level, right? And so what we're doing is giving them that. And they are very well deserving. Um, but again, some student athletes don't come from money. I didn't come from money. And so to have someone see the value in my athletic ability enough to afford me a full ride, and really utilize that time to not only grow as an athlete, but also to grow as a professional. And now here we are, sitting in the seats that we're sitting in because somebody saw the value in what we brought to the table.
Amazing. Now, I think being a former student athlete and then now sitting on the other side of the table, right? You have a different purview, right? And
Yes.
and you're able to speak from a very, very specific seat, right? When
Mhm.
you're talking to donors. How do you best articulate that, right? When you're talking to a donor about that impact who maybe is not a student athlete, who doesn't have any connection to athletics?
Ooh, that's a really great question. I mean, I think you start with your why. You know, for me, basketball was a way out. Again, going back to having limited resources in my upbringing, my mom pushed not only academic excellence but athletic excellence because she realized in her own collegiate career as a basketball player at Auburn that so many more opportunities come out of that you can really lean on. And so I like to reflect on that often and share with the donor that the reason why I'm able to sit in front of you today is because again someone saw an opportunity to really pour into me and and really grow in ways that I probably wouldn't have had I been in another position. And what I love about sport is that it teaches you how to win and lose in front of people. And when you can do that at a high level, you can really do anything that you put your mind to. And I hope more student athletes realize that the hard part is again the losing, right? But the fun part is the winning. And if you can take that into future opportunities, man, you could do some really special things.
Now, women in athletics, women in sports is like this rising trend. It is shout out to Zincs. They have a "We've Always Been Here" campaign going about, like, even though it's something super trendy, it's like women have always been in sports, right?
Uh-huh.
And not just on the court, but now obviously sitting in these types of positions.
Right.
Um, and that looks a lot different than it did, right, 5 years ago. You got women agents, you've got full women teams,
Yes.
right, from sports players and things like that. What has your experience been, especially working in advancement, right? It's been, and then you add in being a Black woman on top of that. What has that looked like for you?
It's actually been a really special journey. I've had so many great champions that invite me into rooms that I probably have no business being in. um, but I'm inspired by, again, going back to what you just noted about seeing all of these other women in these high level positions and they're crushing it. And so for the little Mimi to see that and now be a part of making those gains and hopefully in a position to lead it the way that these women are leading, it's incredible. And I hope that we continue to see more and more women that look like us, and even that don't look like us in these roles, because this is a male dominated industry. But man, we are making some noise. And we're like, hey, move over. We could do this too.
Absolutely,
We could do this too.
absolutely. Can you give us an example of maybe a woman that was in a position of leadership that's kind of pulled you up in your career thus far?
I'll have to shout out Allie Ware. She is overseeing the athletics development shop at Georgia Southern. And when she came in hot and ready to work. And I mean, our whole team was fired up and excited to have her leading the shop. And how I got connected to Hampton was through her. She came in and she's like, "Listen, you are ready to lead your own development shop." So I know Anthony over at Hampton, and he is looking for someone of your makeup to go over there and crush it. And without that connection, without her coming in and doing a really great job as far as just analyzing our team and seeing that, like, you know what, Mimi, you're ready. Because sometimes you don't think that you're ready,
Right.
right? And so you won't look for those opportunities. You'll see them pop up, but you might not apply.
Yeah.
And it's not until someone says, "Hey, you're ready. And I'm happy to connect you because you're ready." And so she put her name out there, while putting my name out there, and and entrusted me with that. And so I'm grateful for that.
That's
Didn't get a chance to
amazing.
work with her for a long time, but she is, again, continued to be a champion, and so I know that I'll be able to continue to lean on her.
Which I think that speaks volumes, right? That someone was able to come in a short period of time and see you,
Yes.
right? And see your ability and be able to put you in a space of, hey, make the jump, right? I was having a
Right.
conversation that sometimes, our leadership, good leadership invests in their people,
Mhm.
right? And the flip side of that is like, do I invest in this person and then they leave?
Right.
Right. And so to have a leader to invest in you, but still in a very short period of time, still want to see you fly and go
Yeah.
is amazing. So
No
that's
question.
awesome. So now being in, right, a position of leadership, what is something that you hope to, now being in that position, hope to be able to do for someone who's obviously coming up in this space?
I wanna be able to provide the opportunity. Anybody that is, what I like to use, humble, hungry, and smart can have a job with me, essentially. If I have the funds and I have the opening, absolutely. I Without the opportunity to even get my start in athletics or even in advancement, again, I'm not where I am today. And so I just want to be able to provide the opportunity. I want to open up my network and allow that to be your network as well. Um, and allow people to grow. And like, I want to pour into people. I want you to have to go because you have been so well invested in it, had so many opportunities to grow to now that you're ready for that next position. So the opportunity, that's what I want to provide.
That's amazing. Um, I know a big piece of what you do, right, is relationships.
Yes.
So a lot of people hear advancement, they hear development, and their goal is like this dollar amount. How do we reach this dollar amount? But they forget about the fact that we're in the people of business.
Yeah.
Um, what's the like biggest gem you could share in terms of just stewardship and stewarding those relationships, um, in what it is that you do?
Yeah. So when you're in advancement and you're out, what I like to call friend raising, you have to do a lot of listening. And so when you think about stewardship, it doesn't look the same for everyone. What I've noticed, being at Auburn and Louisville and Georgia Southern, the way we stewarded our donors were different at each stop, and how I will plan to do it at Hampton will look differently because now I have to market it to the people that are investing in us, right? So when you're listening to your donors and asking all the right questions, they'll basically tell you what they want that to look like. In some cases, people don't need a lot. In other cases, people want access. They want to be involved. They want to, have that opportunity to sit down with the AD or the head football coach or women's basketball coach. Um, but while you're listening, um, allow that to take you to what that stewardship piece should look like for that donor.
Absolutely. What would you say, um, that you all look for in donors, right? Because we all know the saying, right? All money's not good money.
Right.
Um, what is something that you look out for when you are meeting donors or when you're prospecting donors? Um, what's that look like?
Capacity, the capacity to give, and also, the connection. It's very hard to get someone to give to you that's not connected to your program, right? Or connected to the people that are within your program. So when I'm out asking questions, especially in terms of capacity, I'm asking what your hobbies are. Are you taking your family to Spain every year, or do you spend some time in California in the summer months? Are your kids in private school? Are you going to their games, and what does that look like? Those are some pretty big key indicators for me, and also tells me what you like to do. So then I can find a way to connect with you on those pieces. And so I think as development officers, again, that listening piece and figuring out again what that capacity is, and then figuring out how they want to be connected. Do you want to be invited to a practice? Do you want to sit down in front of the team and share with them what your experiences were like at your institution? Um, how do I get you, one, on campus? If you haven't been on campus, and if you have, why are you on campus? You graduated back in 1975, but yet you are still showing up in 2025. Why is that? And getting down to that, that really helps you figure out, okay, how do I build out the system that gets me from hi, my name is Mimi to thank you for your investment in us.
Right. I think another big piece, right, when we talk about prospecting donors is also prospecting people for your team.
Yeah.
Again, people who may come or feel like they have like a sales background, right? You're used to cold calls, you're used to asking for money, but you're not really clear about what relationship building really consists of, right? What is something that people need to know about themselves in terms of being in this industry, right? As far as relationships, we
Yeah.
know athletics is a industry where we move around a
Uh-huh.
lot. And so some people, those relationships that you have are my donors are my donors there. I can't tap with you anymore, so I may never speak to you again. I don't need to know how your kids are. Now I'm at this new market, and now these are my right? As opposed to your donors may be people that you send cards to for their children at their graduation, and it may be a while, and maybe I haven't asked you for any money in years, but we really had a genuine relationship. So what is something that people need to know about themselves to be able to be in this industry?
One, you have to know yourself. And in the world that we're in right now, social media is often trying to tell you who you should be, what you should be, and how you should do X, Y, and Z. But you have to know yourself. And when you know yourself, um, you can really do some special things if you allow yourself to really lean into what your strengths are, but then also identifying where your weaknesses lie. Um, and figuring out a way with those weaknesses to to grow them so that they become strengths. Um, what I've really gotten comfortable with is being uncomfortable. And in the world of development, where I'm oftentimes meeting with people that don't look like me, I'm having to figure out how to gain trust within the first time that you lay eyes on me in person, right? And so, in knowing that, um, I'm able to have more success. And then again, going back to the weaknesses part, at one point I was afraid to ask people for money. I grew up in a Black household. You don't ask nobody for money.
Absolutely,
You don't
absolutely.
do that,
That was
right?
a no-no.
Exactly. And so that was my weakness, that fear,
Mhm.
right? But because we're in the friend raising business, you really get to know the people, and you get comfortable enough, and they know what you do because you've shared why you're
Right,
there, right? Um, and then you'll have that feel of when it's right. But you have to figure that out for yourself, as far as like how you're going to um, grow into being comfortable doing the uncomfortable things.
right. I think that's huge. Is there an example that you can give us of a time that you were uncomfortable, pushed through, and came out on the other side successful?
Yes. So, when I first told Alan Green that I wanted to get in development, I told him, I was like, listen, I am scared to ask people for money. And he said, Mimi, well, once you ask somebody for $1, you can ask for $1 million. So, you know, call my mom, ask for $1. She's like, sure, right? But then I get into development at the University of Louisville, and my first ever ask was for $1 million. And that lady looked so shocked. She was like, "A million? A million?" And I was like, no, okay, too soon. Or maybe I hadn't done all the work that I needed to do in order to determine, again, the kind of investment that they wanted to make into the athletics department. But then, you know, 2 years later, I'm at the university, Georgia Southern University, and I come across a donor who is giving $1,000 a year to the soccer program, and someone tells me, well, he comes around, but again, you're not going to get a lot out of him. But he has plenty of money. Never been married, doesn't have any children. Sold a company off for an undisclosed amount, and I was like, I like a challenge, you know. Um, and so I remember spending 6 hours with this particular individual. Um, and a lot of that was in his home and just seeing what he was interested in. And it was history. It was like pictures of his great 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 grandma and old artifacts from all over the world. Full of antiques. And so after doing a lot of cultivating with him, I learned that we were in his will. And I wanted to figure out how to get him to invest now. And so what I brought to him was an opportunity to name the soccer field that he once played on. And I said, we need $1 million for it. And he was like, huh, okay. I was like, so yes, an opportunity to leave your legacy that started here for future generations. And he signed on that dotted line, and it's now the Bo Pitts Field.
That's amazing.
For $1 million. So I got that $1 million eventually.
You got the dollar and the million.
Right. But I had to fail somewhere to learn how to do it better in the future. And that's why you try to fail early, fail often, and fail forward.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Well, I think that is the time that we had today.
Thank you so much.
If you could leave just one gem, one piece of advice for little Mimi, what would you say?
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is the best way to grow. Mimi out.
That was amazing. Well, again, I'm with Mimi Hill, the Senior Associate Athletic Director of Advancement
at
Hampton University. And again, my name is Jazmin Elliott with the One Question Leadership Podcast. Mimi, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jazmin. Appreciate it.